Hi, I'm Martin Jarvis, and once again, I want to welcome you to Listen. What goes around comes around. Does it? That's what I want to talk about today. Because when I was younger, I was logical. I'm still kind of logical now, but I was just logical. And my best friend, he was, man, you gotta do right. Right will come back to you. You gotta do wrong. If you do wrong, wrong will come back to you. And I'm like, that is totally ridiculous. And so this is my best friend. We met each other in the 8th grade. We were lab partners, and we just grew up really cool. We went into high school starting around the 10th grade. We practiced the martial art together throughout high school. After high school, we both joined the military together. We were in the same flight at boot camp. So that we were close like that. I mean, wherever we practiced the martial art, when we fight in tournaments and go to other schools and fight them, it was always he and I, and a couple other folks, but this was my best friend. But the difference between he and I, he always believed that. Now this guy in the martial art, I mean, he was way better, than the rest of us. We were like B and C students. We weren't even serious, We were getting a little buzz. We weren't eating right. We weren't sleeping. We were just living crazy lives. And he was kind of too, but the difference between him and everybody that I knew, he always believed that you had to do right and right would come back to you. You had to do good. And that to me was totally ridiculous. But what was funny is growing up, he was always doing better than me. He had a nicer car than I had. I had a cool car, 62 Comet, but he had a nice car that was put together, and he always had money, and everything seemed to always be working for him. I was never suffering, but he was always better off than me. But he'd always be telling, and neither one of us really correlated either one of our lives to that. But that was what he believed, and that is not what I believed. But then even as we split up after boot camp, he went to Illinois, I went to Mississippi, and then I went to Wright-Patterson, then I went overseas, and so my life went to where it went. But throughout my life, I was never really trying to do the right thing. I wasn't trying to do the wrong thing. I wasn't trying to be harsh, but I wasn't good either. I was going out a lot, married, unmarried, it didn't even matter to me. I was a young man, 18, 19, 20 years old when I was in the military, and overseas, there were no rules. You did what you wanted to do. But I have to admit, even the military kind of promoted that, where I was too young to buy alcohol, but in the barracks, right next to the Coke machine was the beer machines, and overseas in the clubs, they'd have nude dancers on base on the remote tours, like in Korea and all. So I was always in places, and I was always doing things that were not quite morally right. But I always justified it by, well, if I'm really not hurting anybody, okay? But in retrospect, I was hurting a whole lot of people, especially a lot of women. But the reality is what you do does come back to you. And now this is kind of strange to put out here because it's not logical. It's not even scientifically measurable. But from experience, I realized that is true. Man, throughout my life, I was always a fun guy. I was always having fun, but I was always doing things that you shouldn't have been doing. The laws weren't really applicable to me if I wasn't hurting anyone, okay? But I still wasn't doing right. And it was coming back around to me, okay? And so one day I had this epiphany, and I woke up one day. I was 28 years old. I'll be 66 this year in November 2024. And it was like I realized I just wanted my life to be different. I didn't want my life to be the way that it was. I wanted to change. Now the reality was I wasn't suffering. I was just a regular kind of guy. I was a single guy. I was going out every night to the clubs. I was getting that buzz every day. Had my alcohol cabinets full. I was just living that life, It was an immoral life. So in a sense, I wasn't doing right. Okay, and I was always broke. I always had a job. I always had a good job. I think that's from my upbringing and all. but I never really applied myself to the point where I could really promote up in those jobs, okay? Simply because I was always having fun. I just waited till 4:30 or 5 o'clock when I got off and I was back into that scene again. I was always doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, and some of them, many of them, most of them were immoral. And some of the things now that I was doing, they were not, immoral to someone else or negative to someone else, but they were negative to me from my life and from my lifestyle. And then I was reaping the benefit, which was a negativity, but I wasn't seeing as negative. Man, as long as I could make it to payday, man, I'd have on my my grocery list, the buzz, I'd have alcohol, I'd have going out, I'd have groceries, DP&L, water and phone or whatever. But I would always make sure and include, even in my list that I was purchasing for on payday, all these things that I shouldn't have been doing that were negative and even destructive to me. So what do you mean? What does that mean, negative and destructive to me? Okay, so aside from the immoral activities I was having, who I'd meet and hook up with in the clubs and all, the things I was doing to myself, I was smoking cigarettes. So what am I doing to my body? Okay, what's going into my body and what's going to be coming out as a result of that? The alcohol, man. I was high and buzzed if I was awake. If I was awake, I was buzzed. Okay, alcohol cabinets full, all kinds of activities that were keeping that buzz. We didn't have gummies back in those days. Okay. And so then my lifestyle, it just wasn't good. As well, I would be in the clubs. I would be in the clubs till night. Man, I'd be in the club. I had a job when I was at NCR. I was wearing a three-piece suit. Three-piece, two-piece suits, usually a three-piece suit. Sometimes I'd go to the clubs right after work, and I'd stay out 2, 3, 4 in the morning to where I would go back to work wearing the same suit I left there with the day before, simply because I didn't have time to change. And so even on a simple level, the sleep, what was the result of the sleep that I was not permitting myself to have? There was a coming around of that as well. My entire life was like that. And so I woke up that day and realized that wasn't the way that I wanted to be. And I share this with so many people, often on this program especially, is that I got up that morning and I went to my apartment. And I began to pick out all the things that I loved. Because I recognized there was something in that. There was something wrong with what I was embracing. There was something wrong with what I was loving. It wasn't even that deep for me at the time, but I went to my apartment and picked out everything that I loved. I had stuff from Korea. I had stuff from Japan and pictures and things. I had trophies, karate, baseball, bowling trophies, jazz album collections, all kinds of cool stuff. A chess set I had picked up in Korea that was so cool. All the stuff that was all my plants, I was growing my own. Everything that I loved, I gathered it all together. I put them all in the dumpster that morning. Man, there was an echo in my house. A lot of folks, look at me like I was crazy. What'd you do that for? That was crazy. Because it was important to me at that moment. All those things that I had attached myself to, all those things that I owned, really kind of owned me. They defined me. They defined my life as far as that was concerned. That's why I loved them. And I realized there was something wrong there in my life. I wasn't thinking about what was going around, coming around, and all that stuff. All I was thinking about was my life was not what I wanted to be anymore. After that morning, I threw all that stuff away, and it just changed. And it changed me. Of course, I stopped going out every night to the clubs. I stopped meeting various people, women and all that, every night of the week. So that part I stopped, which was bringing negativity. As well, the alcohol, I stopped drinking alcohol. So whatever the alcohol was causing in my body was no longer happening. The alcohol that was causing in my mind was no longer happening. I was getting more sleep and going to work rested. I was reaping that as a goodness. I wasn't spending money on the buzz anymore of any kind. I wasn't going to the clubs every night, and so I wouldn't have the munchies from the lifestyle I was living every night. So what was I reaping back? Money that I wasn't blowing. My lifestyle. No lifestyle change. It just began to progress. Incrementally, and sometimes in large leaps. Even to the point, where I am today, just in a very good place. And I look at my kids, I have an older son who was born when I was in that world. And I have a son who came about once I got out of that world, but was still kind of jacked up. And then I have a daughter that was totally who I am now, and I was in her life like 24/7. And so I even see the benefit of the lifestyle that I was living in the response, in the result, in the children that I bore. Okay? So there's a tremendous issue in our lives that we need to be very careful about the lifestyles that we live. Because they're having taking a toll on our own lives, and they're taking a toll on those young lives that are watching us as they're growing up with us, okay? I look at the educational situation. I had a high school diploma when I went into the military. I was 17 years old. And so that's no college. My father begged me to go to college, but I didn't want to go. I wanted to go to boot camp, And so education really wasn't a thing for me. But when so I lived a life. I was a military man. I worked with NCR Corporation for 13 years. After that, not long after that, I worked for the Postal Service, and then 15 years into the Postal Service, I was 50 years old or so. I decided to go to school to get an associate degree. 10 years later, I earned my MBA. I have an associate degree, a bachelor's degree in business, and an MBA. And that time, my daughter was 3 when I started school. So all she got to see was her dad, putting forth this effort that school was that important. So although I'm sowing into my own life and I'm gaining a worldview expansion, and I'm bettering my own life at the same time, my child is watching, and now my child is a sophomore away at college with intentions on becoming an attorney. Because what she saw me doing was being sowed from me into her life. It was going around, and it was coming around, and it affected her life in such a positive way. My son is very interesting because I always taught my kids that you do need to be better than me. Okay, that's the goal. I think I learned that especially when I was working for the Postal Service, and I'd be out walking around, in sub-zero weather, mustache frozen, slipping on the ice, and I'm like, no, I don't want this for my kids, I want my kids to be better than me. So I had my son in a private school, and I was paying that, that's what I was paying for, private school. Why? Because I didn't want him to be in the situation I was, go to boot camp, you just be a regular guy. No, I wanted to prepare him to have a better education than I had, and to give him a wider perspective, a wider worldview, to recognize that this private school is guiding all these kids to attend college, which wasn't even a consideration in my mind. So the function, the work, and the activity, and the money that I'm putting into his life, what is going around is coming back around, because I want him to be well. So I still wasn't going to college at the time, but I was making sure that I was imparting, that I was throwing stuff at him that was going to get him into college, because I knew I didn't want him to be where I was in life, okay? And so he was in his second year of college. He was a sophomore when I had my epiphany, when I decided to go to school at 50 years old. And so I graduated with an associate degree. He may have been a freshman, but I graduated with an associate degree at the same time he graduated with a bachelor's degree from the University of Cincinnati. So as I've imparted to my children to be better than me, and my daughter is on that path now. In my son's eyes, he had a bachelor's degree, I had an associate degree, he was better than me. So he's done, okay? So, but you see it, as a parent, if you look closely at your children, if you were different as a different person in each of their lives, you can see the difference in them, because what they were gleaning from you, what was going around from you into them was coming out and manifesting in a particular way, and you can see the different stages of your life in their personality and character traits. It's amazing, And so it's amazing, but it's important to recognize this, because what goes around does come around. And so a lot of the issues that we have in life today, a lot of the, well, it's on us. That's why when I see people complaining, to the politicians, how the economy is this, or the gas prices are this, or food costs this, or, whatever it is we complain about, the things that are directly related to us. But what I'm suggesting is if the correct decisions were made in that individual's life, they wouldn't be in a position where high gas prices are going to be affecting them. They wouldn't be in a position where high food prices were going to be affecting them, because they'd be making more than enough money to where it doesn't even matter. Like for me, when I get gas, I don't care what the gas prices are. I just put $50 in my tank. I have 2 cars. $50, $50. I don't care if the gas is $5 a gallon. I don't care if it's $2 a gallon. All they're getting from me is $50 on payday. That's it. When I go to the grocery store, I eat healthy. And that's another thing too. What goes around comes around. What kind of food you eating? How healthy are you? I think I learned that in the days when I was getting that buzz, and I stopped getting the buzz and I became healthier. So it wasn't long before I recognized that the next step is to begin changing my diet, the food that I eat, and I'll be getting healthier as well as exercise. So when I go to the grocery store now, I'm not buying a whole bunch of junk food, okay? I like Cheetos and I like Goldfish. That's my go-to junk food, But everything else is like the fruits and vegetables and protein meats and all that good stuff and teas and everything else, man. So what's going around is coming around, even the foods that I'm eating. And what I'm seeing now is I'm saving more money because I'm just buying healthy foods. Now, a lot of people say that, when I buy healthy foods, it costs me more. Well, no, that's because you're buying healthy foods and you're still buying that junk food. You can't do both. You got to stop buying the unhealthy food that you were buying. Just buy the healthy. Of course, if you buy now healthy food and you're still buying this junk food over here, it's going to be costing you more. But if you're replacing that junk food, and I'll tell you, man, because I really, really, really eat healthy. I've been eating healthy for about the past 15 years. But at home, when I get home, so I eat healthy from the time I get up in the morning until the time I get off of work. I'm telling you about the fruits and the vegetables and the matcha teas, matcha coffee, the green teas and the eggs and the tomatoes and the spinach salad and the pecans and all the vitamins and all the stuff I do, right? But then by the time I get off of work at 5, it's like, man, I gotta eat something. It's something terrible for me. And I was eating a bag of chips, and I had to come to my senses one day and say, you can't be doing this because chips are bad for you. Even if I'm eating all this good stuff, chips are still bad for me. So I said, okay. So I got on it, I got used to AI, right? Yeah, what can I use to substitute chips for, or maybe Google or something. And it said, rice is a good substitute. And so then I heard that, white rice isn't good for you, but brown rice is. And so I researched white rice versus brown rice and found that both of them are not good for you. So now what am I going to do? And so then I decided, this is a progress of like this past year, okay? So then I came to the point where, and this was maybe 2 months ago, what can I do? Well, get a potato, have a potato. So what I do when I get off of work, where I normally get a bag of chips or something, around 5:30 or 6, I take a potato, one potato, a big potato, of course, peel it, chop it up, thin pieces, look like potato chips, right? And then I fry them in olive oil. And that's my snack. And so I'm satisfied. That's my snack, and it tastes good, because I'm dipping it in ketchup and I have salt and pepper on it, and they're good, And maybe about an hour and a half or so later, I have dinner. And all dinner is a piece of protein meat, like a piece of chicken, maybe a steak. I was doing a pork chop for a while, but I kind of got sick of that. And turkey as well. I might have a turkey burrito. And I don't do bread anymore. Because I love bread so much that I can eat like 6 or 7 slices in a loaf when I get off of work. I eat like 2 plain. Then I make 2 pieces of toast. Then I'll make like 2 just slices of bread with butter. I like bread like that. So in the past, I'd say about 3 months, I haven't bought any bread. Because if the bread is in the house, I'm going to eat it, okay? So I don't keep in the house the things that are not good for me. Because if they're not here, I can't eat them, okay? And now if I go my wife and I, we go out to dinner once a week and we go to a movie once a week. We had to come up with something when my daughter left, that empty nest syndrome, so we had to start being intentional about doing something. Now, whenever we go to a restaurant and they have like the bread coming out, now I'll eat that because I'm not eating bread any other time. And soda, I don't drink soda anymore. I used to drink like a 2-liter Mountain Dew every other day because it tastes so good. And it does, or it did. Now I'm drinking turmeric ginseng tea. I put in my Mr. Coffee. I make it like drop a couple tea bags in the bottom of the coffee, put 2 bottled waters in there, put it in the refrigerator, man. Drink them cold. They're great. And they're good for me. They're healthy. So when I go to dinner, I'll have a Sprite. When I go to the movies, I'll have a Sprite. But that doesn't matter because I'm not drinking soda at home anymore at all, you see. Because I realized, this holds true for every aspect of life. What goes around comes around. There are health benefits and health negativities depending on what you're doing. There are benefits in life financially, whatever you're doing, man. When I stopped going out, this is going back a little bit. When I stopped going out, see, I used to have to take little uppers, to keep me up, and then I'd take the downers to go to sleep. And those things you could find, like the uppers would have been like Dexatrim and Sudafeds. Like back in the day when I was, doing things wrong, I'd get the stuff off the street. But then, as I was becoming good, I still had some of those old bad habits. But eventually I came to the point where recognizing that, if I just give up taking these things to stay up or to stay down, I could get normal rest. Sowing again. What's going in is coming out in a positive way. I'm getting to work on time because I'm not oversleeping. All these things. So I'm going through all this, jumping all around just to share with you whatever negativity in your life that you're facing. It's related to something that you're doing. I do have an MBA, right? There's this concept in business. There is actually this concept called Six Sigma. Some of you guys be aware of it. And it's certain techniques to help you figure out whatever's wrong in a process or in a business or something that's going on. You can figure it out by using the techniques in Six Sigma. Now, one of the techniques is this thing called the 5 whys. Okay, this is the most simple aspect of this Six Sigma, but it works 100% in every situation you're facing, whether it's in finance, whether it's in business, whether it's in your life, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's you're making cookies. I don't care what it is. 5 whys will work. It's so simple. It's like you look at the problem, whatever the problem is. Why do I have this problem? And then you're going to have a reason why that problem exists. Well, say you're a business, okay, and say you're shipping packages, okay, and a customer's complaining because the customers are getting their packages late, okay. So that's the problem. And you say, why is the package getting there late? Well, because the mailman didn't bring it, okay. So you say, well, why didn't the mailman bring it? Well, because the truck with the packages got to the post office after the mailman had already left. Okay. Well, why did the truck get there? Because the people at the warehouse didn't load the truck early enough for the truck to get here before the carrier left. Well, why didn't they load it early enough? Because those people only come to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's not enough time. Well, why do they come to work at 5 o'clock in the morning? That's what time they were told to report to work. Okay, so now they're going to come report to work at 4 o'clock in the morning. And that will allow the truck to pick up the packages earlier. That will allow the trucks to be delivered at the post office before the mailman leaves. That will allow the mailman to deliver the package to the customer on time. Everything in life. Why am I running out of money before payday? Because I'm buying all these things that I need. Well, let me look at the things that I need. Well, why am I spending this much money on that? Why am I spending? And look at the things that you're buying. That's probably the reason right there. Or why aren't I not making enough money? Because, I'm not working any overtime. Why are you not working overtime? Because it's not fun. Well, that's an issue right there. Why don't I have enough money? Because that's all my job pays. Well, why am I still working here? Because I don't have an education. Well, why don't I have an education? Because I haven't gone to school. Well, right here, go to school. Man. You can look at it in relationships too, man. How come I don't have a husband or a wife? Well, it could be your money. Look in the mirror. Could be your weight. Could be you're not in shape. Could be your clothes that are not quite right. You know, folks are, I don't know styles either. I depend on my wife and my daughter to say, Dad, you're not wearing that, are you? You know, for real. So you could figure, that wouldn't be too hard to figure out, because if you're just out of shape and unattractive, right there. Why are you out of shape and unattractive? Because I'm eating the wrong kinds of foods. That's what I'm going around and coming around. Why? Because I'm not going to the gym, or I'm not exercising, I'm not working out. Fix that, man. Right then you realize that's why you're not attracting anyone, because you're not as attractive as you should be. And so you say, okay, I'm going to take the next year, and I'm just going to forget about trying to find a husband or a wife. I'm going to take 1 year, and I'm going to get in pristine condition. Right there. 5 whys. We'll do it every time. And they'll always identify what you're doing that is sabotaging the desire that you'd like to have. But then now you're faced with another choice, though. Do you want to do what it's going to take to correct the situation? Okay? Are you going to make those employees come in at 4? Are you going to go to the gym and work out? Are you going to stop buying junk food? What you going to do? See, it's the 5 whys will identify the issue, but the 5 whys won't fix the problem. Ultimately, it's going to be up to you to do what needs to be done. Okay? And really, all it boils down to is what goes around comes around. What you're doing is coming back at you, good or bad. And what I'm sharing with you right now is what I didn't know as a young man. I didn't realize it. I didn't believe it. Although my friend would tell me all the time, it didn't make logical sense to me. How could something happen simply because of my response to it? I always say, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But man, I found out in over the years that no, I may not understand why the principle works, but I can pretty much show you that what goes around comes around, and you can look at it across cultures, across the world, across religions. You know, the Christians would say you reap what you sow. The Hindus would say there's this thing called karma. The regular folks would say what goes around comes around. Every culture, every religion, every people on this planet believes that what you do comes back, and we've seen it. We've even seen it in nations. We've seen leaders of nations be terrible, be rotten people, and treating the people rotten and terrible, and it coming back on them. We see Gaddafi. We see Saddam. I mean, we may not have had, you know, a legitimate reason to be even in the mix, but they got what they deserved based on how they were treating innocent people. And still, now we were in the mix, and maybe we shouldn't have been, you know, as a government, as a country, as a people. But look at our nation now. We are also suffering. See, this thing, you know, we are also things coming back to us, what we have dished out. As Brother Malcolm said, the chickens coming home to roost. In our nation, it's total chaos, total confusion, and anger, and hate, and division, all this negativity. Why? As a response of what we've done in other nations. So although, say Gaddafi may have needed it because of the type person he was, and Saddam may have needed it because of the type person he was, our putting ourselves in the mix in a way we should have not been in there, we set ourselves up for garnering some negativity as well, okay? And see, then somebody does something to us, you know, or in a negative way, and then they have to suffer. We all have to come to this conclusion to recognize what goes around comes around. We need world peace. And this is going to be the controversial one. As if I haven't gone there already. Those people at that southern border, man. How half this nation responds to them in such a terrible way. Look, what do you think is coming back to us from that? The most amazing thing to me, and I think this will cut across whether you're Democrat or Republican, but this is my belief. Look at the ancestry of many of the people that are complaining about these immigrants coming over the southern border. Many of their ancestors came from Italy. They came from Poland. They came from Germany. They came from Hungary. They came from places all over the world as immigrants, simply looking for a better life. Some of them fleeing oppression. Some of them fleeing, death. Some of them fleeing starvation. And so then the descendants of those now are complaining about other immigrants who are coming here for the same reasons that their families and their ancestors came here before them. And a lot of it is, and so what do you think is going to be coming back as a result of that? Some negativity, man. And I'll tell you even worse, maybe a little history lesson. The people that are coming to us, fleeing over our southern borders from like Guatemala, Honduras, a lot of those places back in there, they're fleeing situations that our country helped to create. Our country helped destabilize governments, helped take down elected governments, to put on our own puppet governments to help us acquire a lot of their resources, like agricultural resources or whatever. And then when we left, their nations were destabilized. And somebody came in to fill the void, and it was criminals and gang members, and the result was poverty and crime and extreme crime and violence. And so those people now are fleeing those lands that our country helped to create the negative situation that they're fleeing from. And now we're trying to stop them from coming here. I don't care how you want to paint it, how you want to paint it politically, socially, or religiously, or whatever. The reality is we created their situation, and them coming here is a result of the situation that our nation created in their lands, okay? And so what we did, so this comes back again, what goes around comes around. Because historically, we actually did everything that I just described and more, okay? We had destabilized their nations. We created a vacuum as far as authority and government, and stepping into that vacuum were criminals and gangs and all that stuff, and another income of extortion and murder and rape and all that mess. And so now all these millions of people are coming into our nation. These millions of people coming into our nation is what we are reaping as a result of what we have sown in their nations. It's happening. That's what that is. What went around is coming around to us over our borders. We created that. And then we're going to compound it by punishing, by manhandling, by splitting up those families, by sending people back, by incarcerating them. All the things we do to those people who are only coming here because of what we did to their governments, we are compounding the negativity that is going to come upon us. The chickens are coming home to roost. Look at our nation. We're kind of messed up. And I know we don't want to. The nation is great. But within that nation, I want to say the people. You know what an infrastructure is? An infrastructure, all the stuff that keeps the nation together, like the roads and the electricity, phone service, internet, all that stuff. But the infrastructure of a nation, consisting of its people, are extremely corrupted. Because we're all fighting. We're all fighting each other negatively. Even the politics, back and forth, fighting and fighting. It comes to a point where the chicken or the egg, which one came first, who knows? But the reality is what we're doing is having an equal and opposite reaction, as Sir Isaac Newton would say. So all of the I want to say sowing and reaping, that's a religious term, but it's the same as what goes around comes around. All of the reaping that we're receiving is from the sowing that we're doing. And so it's an equal and opposite reaction. It's coming back to us in the same kind of way. That's it. There has to become a time when we have to come to a place of wisdom and recognize what's jamming us up. And so I'm telling you as the individual, because the nation isn't watching this program. I wish it were. But the nation isn't watching this program. But as individuals, the best you can do is just get your life right. Quit doing bad. Quit messing up. Quit doing people wrong. You've seen people at work that are kind of vile, kind of negative, always rough and backbiting, talking and really negative and stuff. Or are you that person? These type things have to end. And even the simple negativities that we participate in discussions, we participate in negativities, and we may not be the ringleader, but we participate in it. Same thing, man. We got some reaping coming our way. It's time to be the good person. It's time to be the good one. And now I don't mean the doormat. I don't mean to let people walk all over you. But how you respond to them. Like if you're in a business world, a business environment, or a work environment, government environment, which is where I am, and people are acting wrong, don't fight back. Fight back with the pen. That's what they have EEOC for, when things are being done wrong. Don't do it the old way. That's simply going to perpetuate more negativity back and forth, back and forth. I remember once there was this perfect example, and we're going to close with this. These two guys that worked where I worked at the post office, one was a clerk and one was a carrier, and they had this big gurney kind of looking thing that's wooden that they both used, and one guy had it in a place where the other guy didn't like it, so one guy was on one side of it and another guy was on the other side, and they were trying to pull it to get it to go their own way, and it's a perfect symbolic example of what I'm talking about. Neither one of them got anywhere. And the resolution was they decided to take all those gurneys out, so nobody had the opportunity to use them, and they weren't pretty convenient, you see. So not only will there be a tussle between folks with the going and comings on both sides, eventually even what you have will be lost, okay? And so what I'm suggesting is just yourself as an individual begin to do right. So at least your children can begin to see you do right. There's a lot of folks doing right. But you need to do right, and I need to do right. And so our children can learn that this is the natural thing to do right. Because they're going to gravitate to something. Let it be you. Let it be the right way. Because you're not going to be around forever, although I plan on being around for a long time. Make sure that by the time you leave this earth, that they've gotten that proper lesson. And they will benefit from your wisdom and your understanding of sowing and reaping, your understanding of what goes around comes around, your understanding about how chickens come home to roost in this thing called karma. And you have imparted that into their lives simply because they watched you live it. And I guarantee you that their lives are going to be way better than yours. And isn't that really what we're looking for as parents? We want to be well, but we want our children's lives to be better than our own. Think about it. Well,